and we'll wait for give a couple of minutes or 30 seconds and let our
Sure.
audience settle in as we get ready here. Yeah, I know whenever we talk offense, people get excited.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I think that they'll be really excited about this. And as we're going to tip it off here in about 15 seconds, I'm live here from New York. Coach is live in Wisconsin. And we welcome all of you that have been able to carve out some time in your Wednesday night to spend with us and talk a little hoops. And, and like I said, I'm excited here. Coach has a great presentation in store. So without further ado, it's my honor to introduce Coach Dave Lepisto, Kimberly High School, girls basketball, the Papermakers, Circle of Offense. Coach, take it away.
All right. Thank you. Thanks a lot for having an opportunity to share. And what this little talk is going to be on. I've watched a ton of these that a lot of X and O, a lot of different examples in some video, and sometimes video is a little shaky. I do have a ton of video. I also have a website if you look at that front page. But what this is going to be is it's our offensive philosophy. And I am Dave Lepisto. I'm an assistant coach at Kimberly High School. I've coached for over 25 years. I teach in Green Bay as an elementary phy ed teacher. These last 7 years, I've had the opportunity to coach here in Kimberly, where I live, for Coach Troy Cullen, who's a future Hall of Famer. He is such a great person to work for and work with. He's assembled a great staff, and Coach Trost, Coach Brown, Coach Mady, Coach Anderson, Coach Zelmer, Coach Ringler. I mean, and all of that is due to his great leadership. He lets us do what we do. He lets us do and encourages us to take charge of certain areas, and offense has been one of the things that I've been doing. To play at Kimberly, though, you have to be a defensive player. I mean, we are always one of the best defensive teams in the state. That's a given. When I started 7 years ago, we made it to the state final or the state semifinal, and we scored about 45 points a game. We weren't exactly an offensive juggernaut, but boy, could we defend. And over these last 7 years, coach has allowed me to institute some different concepts and some changes, and we've increased our scoring average to just right around 60 to over 60. We're successful based on his program. It's outstanding. Over the 7 years I've been involved, we've been to 4 sectional finals. We won 2 of those sectional finals to make it to state, and then we had a sectional semi and then 2 regional finals. So it's been a really good run. I'm hopeful that we have a season this coming year because I believe we can continue our success. I've added this screen, basic elements of creativity, and the 3 words on the bottom: copy, transform, combine. As you watch this and have the understanding that, nothing is truly original. In the words of Kirby Ferguson, everything is a remix. And I've stolen's not the right word. I've copied and I've transformed and I've changed things to make it my own and what works for us from tons of people. And I just listed some here. Some are big name people. Some are people you might not ever have heard of. But I've taken what I've read and seen and combined it and changed it so it's new to me and new to our kids, and it's not just regurgitated. However, nothing is original. I mean, so hopefully you can take something out of this. Those names: Brian McCormick, Chris Oliver, Mike McKay, Doug Novak at Bethel, Doc Shepler. And I saw a video of his, and it gave me affirmation or confirmed what I was doing was different, but yet still within the realm of what other people are doing. Then I have Forrest Larson on there. He's known in Wisconsin and really nationwide, just outstanding at teaching skills. But I just love working for him in camps. And then a name you're probably not familiar with, Michael Wittig, who I used to coach with in Green Bay. A lot of this stuff it goes back 25 years, and it's been changed and through conversations. And used to coach with Mike, and I ran the offense. He did the defense. We used to come up with stuff in the middle of practice, and it's stuff I still use. Might have changed the names of it or the verbiage to it, but again, these are the people that where all of this comes from. And then I just transform it and change it in different ways. Speaking of transforming, I use this quote. It's Urban Meyer, whatever you may think of Urban Meyer. It's a great quote, though. Leaders create culture. Culture drives behavior. Behavior produces results. And I use it a lot. And then one day I was using it with my teachers at my school. Was doing a professional learning with them on leadership. And it sparked a little thought in my head where I could use this in the basketball realm of how to explain what we do on offense. Because so many people ask me, well, how do you do this? Why do you do this? Why do you do that? And I use these terms and decided to transform it and change it into this, which is our circle of offense, how everything is connected, and basically how we teach things and why we teach things is all based on this circle. And every single thing that we do can go into one of these categories. And it just is a visual that has helped me. Like when you're thinking of what to do in practice, what you do, okay, what are we going to do? And it's simple to explain. However, it's not easy to install, for lack of a better way. But the first thing I want to look at is gravity. Gravity enhances space. Space creates advantage. Advantage produces open shots. Open shots increase your chance for makes, and makes improve your gravity. And then it just keeps going around and around. And the seams to the basketball, though, that hold this all together and truly get you a chance to be successful as a team and as players are the decisions. Those decisions are huge in deciding and getting better and becoming a more skilled player. So this circle of offense, we're going to look at this. And I always start with gravity. And what is gravity? You know, it's a term that we use and have used a long time. I saw it in an old ESPN, the magazine article, well, probably close to 10 years. They were describing like Bruce Bowen had gravity in the corner because people had, he would shoot and you had to guard him. So it pulled defense to him. So gravity to me, though, means a little bit more than that. It's the force created by ball-skilled shooters who could start and stop under control while making great decisions. And that's a statement that I think really is key to being a great offensive player. Now, as coaches, we would love to have every single player with that high level of gravity where they're ball skilled. They can shoot and they're high percentage shooters. They can start and stop under control, meaning they can be athletic, and then they can all tie that together with their great decisions. And some people say, well, you can't make those players. And I would beg to differ. I think we have some control in creating gravity players. And we do that because they are ball skilled. It's our job to get them ball skilled. They got to be able to dribble, pass, and catch. They want to become, we want our players to become capable shooters. For us, that means every single kid in our varsity program got to have 3-point range, and you want to be able to score at the rim. We're not adverse to mid-range. It's just not something we get a lot, just basically by the way we play. We are trying to get to the rim, and then we will kick to open players. So it's not usually not around that mid-range spot. But if it's a big advantage shot, we have no problem with kids shooting it. We just don't shoot very many at all. And then starting, stopping, and pivot. All those footwork things. A high gravity player is or can do all of those things. They're an athlete. That doesn't mean that they have to be the fastest, nor do they have to jump the highest. But they have to be able to, as a player, start and stop under control. And we do that if you can't, and then pivot to get out of things. If you can't pivot, you can't play. That it really is a simple thing, and it's undervalued because it's so huge because so many times in a game you are going to be stopped, and you have to be able to stop under control and on balance. And we work on it a ton. And then all of that is tied together with decision making, because you can still be as skilled as you possibly can. And if you do, I mean, I could still go out and shoot a bunch of threes and make them, and I could go out and dribble like crazy and stuff like that. But as a 50-year-old, my decision making when somebody else starts to play defense on me might not be the same now as it was, 30 years ago. So we really, everything we do in getting our kids skilled is use defenders to create opportunities where kids have to make decisions. And sometimes they're correct decisions, sometimes they're not, but the more experience they get doing it, that's a gravity player. And, it's somebody who can pull defense toward you, and you create advantage for yourself and for your teammates. And the goal for us always is to have 5 gravity players on the floor at all times. Now, to be ball skilled with dribble, I mean, every single kid in our program, if you're expected to be able to dribble while you're guarded, that means if you're a 6'4" girl or if you're a 5'2" girl, you are going to be, because we want to be able to be our own outlet. So if you get a rebound, you're able to dribble and attack space right away and then make a decision to pitch ahead if you have to. I have video of all this stuff and again, with Zoom, sometimes video doesn't show up very well. And I also have a link that you can eventually go to see all of these videos if we don't have time at the end. But if you do have a question and want to see a particular thing, I can stop and we can go to a video to see it. But again, Zoom, it just doesn't work the greatest. But right now with dribbling, we have change of direction dribbles, nothing extravagant. But what we want to do them well. We have a crossover. One thing with crossovers is we like to use that in the full court when you're not as closely guarded. As soon as you get closely guarded, we want to see 2 things, basically. We want to go behind our back or through our legs. They're safer when we're closely guarded. We don't want to fight the pressure. And when you cross over in front of a defender, it's going to get stolen. So we really stress the behind the back and through the legs. And then the other change of direction we have is a bounce back dribble where we can create space and then we can reattack with a hip swivel. It gets us into a sprinter stance, which we will talk about here shortly. Also with your dribble, we have to have a change of speed. I always call it with, because I teach elementary phy ed. So with our program, I do a lot of our little kid youth stuff, our 2nd, 3rd graders. But this works with our varsity kids too. You want to be able to play with a wiggle. And that means you have a change of speed. You're not predictable. You want to be able to make sure that you are harder to guard by not just going one speed. And then we have 3 main things that we do. We push dribble. We want to be able to push ahead when we have space, push the ball to space, get it out on your shoulder, push it out ahead. And then if you're in trouble, we can go to a protection dribble. Or if we are going into a dribble post-up situation, which is one of our drive reactions in our offense, we get into a safe T position, making a T and being able to back down a player. But then our main base move is a hesitation. We want to be able to have a great hesitation move. And if you have just simply a hesitation move, you are 90% being able to be hard to guard. Having that quick little change of pace, you can hesitate and cross over, you can hesitate and behind the back and stack moves together. But having the good base hesitation for us is it's our main move that we want to get very good at to great. Going on, I have video examples at the end. Passing. Another skill that becomes, if you're good at it, you get good, you have high gravity. Every player in our program, we have to be able to pass with 2 hands and also 1 hand. And we want to be able to pass outside the frame of our body. More times than not, we have to make little reaches and wraps around with 1 hand or 1 hand push, or we're doing a 2-hand overhead. Our 2-hand passes, basically, it's usually on pitch aheads when we are in transition, or we have 2-hand passes when it's our overhead skips. We skip pass a ton. And these, we have to get, as a program, and I'm going to say this right now, we have to get better at these things because we have to be able to throw strikes better. I mean, we're sometimes, this last year, we were kind of all over the place with our passing, which I think affects your shooting as well. We teach some one-hand passes. We have one-hand push passes where you might have two hands on the ball, but you're releasing it with one, both right and left hand. We pass one hand off the dribble, and then we use hook passes a ton because we talk about being able to see this game on the backside. The backside is where the game is played. Good players can see everything on the ball side as you're going towards the ball side. Great players can see everything on the backside. And to get the ball to the backside, you got to be able to use one-hand passes. You're going to have to be able to leave the floor and jump and maybe throw an overhead skip to the backside. So we practice those. And we practice them, you know, in a blocked situation where we're working with a partner. We practice it in some fun little game situations where we are playing a little tag, a toss, catch, chase type of a game. But we also practice it with defenders. And so that's where the decision making really starts to come in, because you have to make the decision, is this a time where I can use a one-hand pass? Or is it a time where I need to come in and really this is a two-hand and I rip across and I got to deliver a good one-hand push pass away from the defense? Those are the things, though, that the decisions bind all of that skill work that we want to get our kids skilled. Again, most people, when they hear gravity, they think of the shooting aspect. And the way we teach shooting, because it's such an important part of the game, and with this gravity section, might be a little different than what other people do. Our footwork is a little bit different. We fight for our feet, but on every catch, ideally, we want to land in a split sprint position on the landing. Now, there's all sorts of talk of 1-2 versus hop. We don't even worry about it so much because we don't want them thinking about their footwork. We want them thinking about making the shot and making the decision, the shoot it, drive it, move it decision. And so we use a couple words. Sometimes we have kids who can square in the air. So when that ball's coming, they can, instead of a split sprint position, if they're on a certain side of the floor, they're able to square their feet and have a little turn and they're in a good shooting position right away. Or they can use a balance step, which I just call it. So we're in a split sprint position, our feet are apart. As the pass is coming, I catch it on my hop, my 2 feet land, and then I simply can move either foot, whichever foot is more comfortable for the player. Because it's multiple different ways that they can do it. It's basically based on player comfort and just practicing different ways and being able to shoot with confidence. So that's our footwork on our shooting. We do have a slight dip and a turn. And of course, the ball goes where your hand goes. And we always want to stick the landing and hold that follow through. The next part of being gravity, being that skilled player, and this is, again, a huge part to be doing, is our starts. Again, we catch with the chest to the ball. We land in a split sprint position. And then our main start is a cross step. So when I catch it, I want to be able to be in the sprint position. I have both feet on the floor. I can cross step in either direction. And whichever decision I make on that defense comes at us. So that's huge for us. That's the most common way that we attack. It gets us going downhill and into the paint, to the lane, or to the basket in a hurry. And we can use the defense's momentum against them. It's cut down on our traveling because we have to get the ball down. The ball is down before your pivot foot picks up. Whereas in the step by, which we use occasionally, but in general, we get called for travel on that because the ball isn't down and that pivot foot comes up. One thing that I've toyed with, and we've toyed with a little bit with some of our kids, is the concept from Chris Oliver. He calls a stab dribble, where you catch and put the ball down on the floor right away so you don't have to worry about a travel, and then you cross step either direction. 2 years ago, we had a player who could do it really well. This past year, we had a player who had a tendency to stab dribble, but then she would continue to stab dribble and not go anywhere. So we really have been working on her with getting to a good, solid cross step. But again, you adapt and you adjust Yes, coach.
How much time? So talk about from a practice side of it. How much time are you spending on these different things? So as coaches are out there, and I thank everyone who's joining us, and please put questions in Q&A so they get an idea. How much time should they, devote to these different parts of your offense?
And it's a great question, and it truly depends. However, I would say we do it the whole practice, because it doesn't matter if we're going 1-on-1, 2-on-2, 3-on-3, 4-on-4. We should be catching with our chest to the ball. We should be attacking the rim with a cross step. So all of these things are built in, and we'll start practice with some basic 1-on-0 little warm-ups, catch, flip it out, cross step, drive, use your finish move in your stops, which I'll talk about here next. But it's always ingrained into everything we do. So we want to make sure, no matter if we're playing 1-on-1, 2-on-2, 2v1, 3v2, any of the ways that we attack and teach offense, it's emphasized that we should be solid with our starts. And if we see that things aren't going well, we might have to the next day break down that, go back to a real basic start drill. One is with a partner where we flip it out and you have to go out, catch it on a hop, cross step each way, flip it to your partner, do it again and again and again. But then you can just refocus, and then you're right back into our regular playing, where those decisions have to be the biggest thing that we're including with that. Great question, though. I mean, it has to be emphasized, because if it's not, it gets sloppy, and then all of a sudden we start traveling, or you're not able to get into the paint, and touching the paint is huge for us. Going on to stops, we stop. Our whole program is based on a stride stop. So if we are going into finish, our base finish move is off 2 feet. We plant outside foot, inside foot, and then we can pivot off of that. We also still teach a jump stop, because one of our finish moves is a good solid jump stop step through. And it's also, jump stop is really good for when you're in pressure. You could still get a good jump stop and pivot with either foot. And then the other stop that we practice, and it's mainly off a dribble, is a hockey stop, where I'm going hard with the dribble, and I just come to like a hockey player sliding sideways, and I come to a stop, and I can drop the ball right behind my back. We don't want to fight pressure, so a lot of times that's a great way to create space. And then we pivot out of all of those stops. Pivoting, again, if you can't pivot, you can't play. And then, again, the whole key to all of this, though, is to bind this all together with decisions and decision making. And we want that attack mentality. So we want the decision to be made as soon as the player catches the ball. And really, you're most open when you first catch the ball anyway. So if you're catching it, you're open, you're either going to shoot it, drive it, or move it. And that decision we want to happen relatively quickly. And as kids get older, it becomes quicker and quicker and quicker. The more opportunities they have to play 3-on-3, 4-on-4, 2-on-2, where you have to make the decision to either pass it or move it or drive it, that's when those decisions start to become much quicker. Our expectation for each player is that they're able to beat their own defender. And that's with the cross step and everything. We don't, I mean, it's just an expectation. We play so much 1-on-1, 2-on-2. You are expected to beat your own defender. So then the decision making now starts coming on reading the help. And then you're able to either to finish versus the help or pass out of wherever the help came from. So, and that dives into our small advantage to big advantage. And I stole that or adapted that from Brian McCormick, his Saba, which is a great book on philosophical on offense. And we ingrained that into our kids from second grade on. They start hearing those words. They might not understand it yet to make great decisions each time, but they hear it. Is that a big advantage shot? Is that a small advantage? Is there no advantage? And then how do we create an advantage? And again, that decision making for us, it's shoot it, drive it, move it. And again, I do have videos of all of this. And now those are all the things that make a player skilled enough to be able to have fun and to have gravity. You know, the game becomes so much more fun when you are skilled. And having that gravity where defenses have to take care and know where you are creates or enhances space for other people. And I believe space is probably the most undertaught thing in basketball. In a sport that is very overcoached, I don't think you could ever overcoach spacing. And I break down spacing as an elementary phy ed teacher in two different ways. And you want to be able to manipulate space in order to be a great player. And those two different ways is, the first is we have individual space, and that's space between you and your opposition. And individual spatial awareness and being able to use it and manipulate it, that's a learned skill. Like in my kindergarten classes, I'm doing it kind of the opposite. Stay in your own bubble, stay out of other people's bubble. In a basketball sense, we want to get into people's bubble. So we want to manipulate that individual space. And we practice it a ton. And I don't know if other people practice it. All I just know is that we do it, and it's something that we really want to do, is get into the defender when we have the ball. That's where a ton of one-on-one games, 1-on-2, then or 2v1, where you have an opportunity to make the pass decision as well. It's huge. The other part of space is team space. That's the space between you and your teammates. And I think that's probably when people hear space, that's what the first thought is that team spacing and the concept of spacing is offense and offense is spacing. It is so true for us. The kids hear that from me all the time. But the space is completely something that needs to be taught, and it is a learned skill. Kids or players have a tendency to go, instead of going through people, they want to go around. Now, there's times when going around, it makes sense, but we want to be able to play through people so we can create space and make it and then take it. And that really makes you a absolute chance, a person who's hard to guard. Attacking space. I just mentioned making space and taking space. We use some terms for this. And what we do so if I catch the ball on anywhere and I'm in my sprinter stance and that defender is right in front of me, I want to be able to cross step and clip the hip. So my shoulder ideally is going to her hip. And what that does is that defender opens up. So we want to open the gate. So clip the hip, open the gate. And now when we have that shoulder to her chest, we have the advantage. And we got a small advantage at this point, and we want to turn it into a big advantage. So if you could picture what I'd tell the girls, it's snake to take. So if you're coming off a ball screen, the snake dribble, I've just always used it as a visual for kids. Snake to take. And we want to take that advantage and veer and sever the angle so the player, that defender, is right behind us. And once we have that defender right behind us, we have complete control. Again, that is it is your responsibility to beat your own player. And now your whole focus can go on to either finishing or the help defender coming over. And then we make another decision. If I have space, I can use that and take that space and go score. If there's chest to chest and somebody is rotated, I am looking to hook pass or kick it out to where the help came from, to a player who has a bigger advantage. And that is key to everything for us. Team space, again, spacing is offense. We use spots, and spots on the floor help our players see the structure, and it creates a template where the players can then play within that template. It just gives them kind of home base, for lack of a better term. Now, the beautiful part is, for us, space is controlled from baseline to baseline and corner to corner. And then once we get across the half court line, it goes baseline to half court. Since offense starts as soon as we have the ball. So we want to control that space. We should be wide. We should be in our running to space, running to our spots. And it's anybody can go anywhere. We don't have any particular like a numbered break. We run a two-side break. So there's corner, corner, wing. And then the other two just play in space. But everything should be controlled. We want to be able to get to our spacing spots and then be able to make decisions out of that. We're conceptual, so we could be in any formation. The spacing rules don't change. Players react to each other, and we have offensive concepts within that spacing template. It just gives us, and then here's our spacing template. And you're looking at that, and I just have it colored, and the kids will see this, and they get to see it. We're nominally a 5-out team. However, if you look on there, every single player can play on the inside. Every single player can play on the outside. We don't have, a couple years ago, 3-4 years ago, our best quote unquote post moves were by our point guard. So it doesn't matter. So we call the area in the post prime. I just call it prime. We got low prime and we got high prime. And that might be just semantics, but for us, I don't want to pigeonhole kids as they're growing up and say, oh, you're a post player, because that isn't what we want. We want basketball players who have high gravity. They're skilled. They're able to play anywhere on the floor. They can pass, they can catch, they can shoot, they can dribble, and they make great decisions. So I'm not going to tell them you're just able to do that in the post. So we call that prime, and anybody can fill it. We have corners, and then there's a slide spot just above the corner that comes into play with a little drive reaction if we have a dribble post up where it is a protection plan. So if I was in a corner and somebody drove from the slot, I slide up once they get down to prime to give them a little room to go to work. So then I just slide up, and that's just stuff that we learn and react with our dribble reactions. Structural improvisation is basically what we are. We have a structure, and then we improvise within that structure. We're not a continuity offense. Sometimes they'll see different things. It might look like we're running the flex. It's just not. It's kids combining different actions. We're freedom. We have freedom within the structure. And then the biggest thing is our kids start to understand where we want to make the defense wrong. The defense cannot be right. That's what we tell them all the time. Now, we might not make the right decision, but the defense cannot be right. If we are doing things the correct way and we're playing great teams and we play in a great conference, best in the state of Wisconsin. So we're playing against well-coached teams who have their defenses on the help side. So we try to take advantage of that by playing on the backside. Is it always successful? No, but good players see the ball side while great players see the backside. And that's that improvisation that we have built into our structure. So basically it boils down to we use space and then pace and ball and player movement to disorganize the defense, create an advantage, and then use that advantage. And now we start going to advantage. And again, our whole key is small advantage to big advantage. And the goal is to make the defense make choices. Like I mentioned before, defense cannot be right. Now we do have some rules or concepts of our offense. And honestly, this is, when people sometimes laugh at me when they say, well, what are your rules? I said, well, here's what we do. Offense starts as soon as we get the ball. And sometimes people think I'm being flippant, but it just is. As soon as we get the ball, we're in attack mode, and none of our concepts change just because we are in the full court. We want to make sure we attack. We want to be our own outlet. We want to get space. We're running in our two-side break, so we're in our spacing structure, and then we play. And next thing we want to do is we want to touch the paint. We could do it via the pass. We throw it down to prime. I have a ton of prime video where we're scoring out of prime or kicking it back out of prime. Or we want to touch the paint with a dribble. And middle drive, baseline drive, whatever it may be. We don't want to let the ball get sticky, so the ball moves, and we want to get it from one side to the other. It could go side, top, side. It could just go direct with a skip pass. But we want to get that ball from one side to the other. Now, there'll be times when the ball might be held, especially if it's the third catch. It might be a pass, and then a hold to give a little bit of time so you can run an action. But otherwise, that ball is really moving. We want it to move. We don't want to catch, hold, jab step 20 times. That's not what we do or want to do. We want to get that ball moving. Either we are attacking or we're moving it. We want to create double gaps,
Do you
triple
do
gaps.
anything with the clock? Do you
Do
do
anything-
anything, Coach, with the clock to encourage that so it doesn't stick?
Yeah, I will. There are times like I will start counting for us to get the ball up the floor, pitching it ahead, doing that. But a lot of times it hasn't been sticky, or we'll just stop it and say, wait a minute, hold on. It's got to be more rhythmical, and I'll clap. Even it's got to be 1, 2, let it go. But it doesn't happen often where we get sticky. But if it does, we will talk a little bit on it, or put a little clap to it, or get back to our rhythm where it's pass, then maybe a little hold, or pass, cut, and then we're not filling right away, which we don't want to do. So those are the things that we can stop and we talk about. And that's that teaching of spacing that really, really, really can never be done enough, because spacing is always a work in progress. As soon as you think your spacing's good, it's going to go poor. And you just got to make sure you do that. We pass and cut. We have lots of different cuts, but they're all simple. Slice cuts, basket cut. We have something called an empty cut, where that goes from prime to out towards either the top or the slots or the wing, whichever way, but it's going basically from south to north, for lack of a better way of saying it. We back cut, of course, if you're overplayed, the dribble at, back cut, different things that 99% of offenses have. But the biggest thing is that we're quick in and we're quick out. And we want to get outside that 4-point line. If you're hugging the 3-point line, you're too close. Our spacing's going to be off. Now, if a pass is coming to you and you'd move into it to get to a shooting position, that's a little different animal. But in general, we want to get way out past that 4-point line to see if the defense will come out with us, which then that space, creates that advantage that we can take. I also have, we can linger on our cuts a little bit versus zones. However, we might flash and linger in the lane a little bit, versus zones, more so than against man-to-man. But cutting is a scoring action, so we definitely want to do it. And it's a great way to create double gaps and triple gaps. The other way is ball screens. Ball screens are a great way to create double gaps. And then by changing your formation. And since we're conceptual and we have that structure, there's nothing wrong with, if you can look back at, say, have a player in the corner, a player in the ball side prime, and another player on the low wing. So there's 3 on that side. That means the other 2 have a whole lot of space to play in. So there are ways to manipulate and change formation and be able to create those double and triple gaps. Now, when we have those gaps, we want to make sure that we drive it. And we have some different finish moves, and everything is based on a stride stop. And I'm just going to flip over to a website that has all of our finish moves to it. Our base finish move is off 2 feet. It's a stride stop power layup. I'll try to play this right now. We'll see if it plays or not. But our power layup is outside foot, lands, and then inside foot. So that's stride stop. And then everything we do is based off of that stride stop. We can pivot back and have pass back. We can pivot back and skip it back to the top. But it's all based on this power finish with 2 feet. And then we finish outside our body. Now we have a couple counters off of that. We want to stride stop, and then we can pivot back. We call it a half donut. I think Coach Novak calls it that. That pivot back is a good action. You let the defender fly by, and then you turn around and you shoot it. Again, it's all based on the stride stop, so it's a good counter move to it. The big thing is you have to be able to stop. So here we go, good outside inside, turn, fly by, shot. And these are situations, again, where the defense is going so fast and you are controlled outside foot, inside foot, back pivot. And again, there could be a pass out of this. We could pass it right back to our quote unquote safety valve, which would be number 12 in that look. or we can skip it to the next player. Half donut, or we do, the nice part is, so then we shoot floaters and teach floaters, but the nice part about having a stride stop, it's the same footwork, only we're just further away. So we have stride stop floaters. We use a jump stop step through. I'll just show one quick one here. It's just a little different with our footwork. It's out of a jump stop. This is a great move for us. It is something that we've been very successful at, and partly it's by location. From University of Wisconsin, Green Bay plays big. So we jump stop, step through. And the nice part is referees are understanding that it is not a travel. So we get a good jump stop and then step through. And long as you get that ball shot before your pivot foot comes down, you are perfectly legal. That's a big one for us. And then we do have some 1 foot finishes. That's all determined on space. We have a power slide layup that used to teach, when we'd go on this move, we used to teach hips across move, or another one. We just weren't very good at it. We had a few kids about 5-6 years ago who could do it well, but we moved to this and we've been much more successful. It's a 1 foot. We are catching with our chest to the ball. Here's a good cross step. Your shoulder to chest. You clip the hip, open the gate. Now you veer, and now you read the help, and you slice yourself through. You split the defender, and then you get your shoulders turned. She doesn't quite get them turned here until late, but it's so you slide by so you don't charge. This is a great move for us. Here's another example. Again, and you slide through. We use it right hand or left hand. Doesn't matter. It's a good little cross step drive for us, and then a good way to finish off 1 foot. Euro step, we do that. Opposite foot layup, we teach that. And then we have a long layup floater. Those are all things that we teach to be able to finish well at the rim when we have these advantages. And that is key for us. Next thing is, what happens though is sometimes you go in there for a drive and it doesn't go according to plan. So you got to have a plan B, and that's our protection plans. And that's our pivots. Like I mentioned, we can pivot and pass back. One other thing we do is you get in there and you get into that protection dribble, and we do a dribble post up, like Charles Barkley, you're getting in there. Otherwise, you could dribble all the way through. So if you have a baseline drive, you could dribble all the way through and come back around, or dribble right back out. We don't just want to go in there without a plan, where we just jump stop and figure out, what happens, and go into turtle mode where we put our head back into our shell. That isn't how we want to play. We want to be able to get to the paint, get to the rim, be able to have a protection plan in place where we can pivot and start hitting standstill shooters who are rotating and reading their drive reaction. We read help. If it's chest to chest, we're going to pass from where the help came from. And I just mentioned drive reactions. Our first cut drive reaction. So this is, as youth coaches, this is probably the most important thing to be able to learn. How to react to the other player, your teammate's drive. We just go circle movement, so it's a push or a pull. The only time I don't really need to move is if I'm at the end of a double gap or a triple gap. I can simply hold my spot, and I can make sure I'm ready to score on a pass. Otherwise, it's pretty much just that circle. We always have somebody coming back for a pass back, and then there's a baseline drift adjustment on that backside. You'd slide down on the baseline, and then I have prime reactions on there. So we have lots of times we have a ball side post. I know in dribble drive, it's always, the post is always on the weak side. But when we're in prime, we have no problem being on the ball side because we teach the drive reaction. So if there's a player in prime and I dribble at her and I dribble towards the middle, she's just escaping back out right behind me. And it is a great way to clear the lane. Does that defender make a decision? Do they stay to help? Well, if they do, I stride stop, turn around, pivot back, and pass to the person who just escaped. This happens anywhere on the floor. It can happen at high prime or at low prime. And then the other thing is second cut. So if the drive is stopped, the player is pivoted, she's in trouble, we make a second cut. So I made my first, I got pulled along. Now all of a sudden, my teammate needs help and I want to put pressure on the rim. So I dive. We get a lot of 45-degree wing dives on this. Second cut is, I think last year teams tried to take our second cut away, which was fine. We skipped and went to a skip back instead of, really it was almost like a third cut action. And then we do use off-ball screening. These are still our concepts. You always use this statement. This is where people always look at me a little funny. Pin for a friend on the way in. We pin and skip the backside a ton. And we use, this past year we didn't do it as much, but previous years we elbow curled. So if I was at the top and I pitch, I could go away and screen for that wing player who could elbow curl, and then we just play out of it. And then anytime I'm on the inside, if I'm in prime, I could screen for a friend on the way out. So you get some back screens. This is a great way to get flex action. And when you start combining things, that's when you start getting to be really, really hard to guard. As defensive people, it's hard to guard multiple actions. We had plenty of time this year where we were getting a pin and skip on the backside, followed in a wing ball screen on this side. So it's just, I just call the action pinball because we're getting a pin and a ball screen. And having those combined actions, and again, they're not called. None of these things are called. It's just practicing those concepts, and the players they become better and better and better at it. And they just start stringing and combining those concepts together. Offense is offense. Our transition flows into half court. Offense, there is no secondary break. We're in it. We transition to space. We play in space. We do our stuff. We do our concepts, and we react to drive, and we're ready to shoot. Again, we might run some sets, but it's all based out of formations of what we are doing. And then we run the same concepts, man versus zone. Doesn't matter. There might be slight variations on screening angles and cuts, but it's the same thing. So it keeps simple for players in a complex game. It's not easy, but they are simple. And that's the goal. So then kids can use their gravity skills. And again, all those advantages create open shots. Our kids are expected to take big advantage shots if you're open, of course, time and situation dependent. One thing is we do such a good job of finding those big advantage shots that it has affected the number of free throws we shoot because we just don't take bad shots. So there might be some kids that we say, you have a little more gravity and you got to be able to take that contested shot at the rim because it just becomes one player's big advantage might not be another player's big advantage. But that all emerges as we play and go through the season, and kids learn their roles and start to embrace their roles. Again, makes are key. For us, the goal is to win the effective field goal percentage. And over the last 3 years, it's basically been a 1-to-1 comparison. 2 years ago, we won 20-some games. In every single game that we won the effective field goal percentage. The only games we lost were the games that we did not. Last year, there were 2 times where we won, but we didn't win the effective field goal percentage, but it was within like 0.1%. So that is the biggest thing. So makes are key, and open shots increase our chance for makes, which again, here it kind of shows our last 4 years, 16, 17, we were only a regional final team, and our effective field goal percentage was 44%, 44.4. The next year we lost 3 games total. The only team we lost was a state champion. We lost to them 3 times, but our effective field goal rate improved by 2%. So we were up 46.4. 2 seasons ago, we were pretty elite offensively. We were 53.3 effective field goal percentage. And then last year we regressed a little bit, went back to 46.3. But those are all based on this circle of offense, because the more open shots we have, the better opportunity we have to shoot. This year we had a couple players who didn't have that high gravity, and we had to adjust out of it, which we were able to do. We were still very successful. But this coming year, we should have pretty much 12 kids with gravity. They can shoot, and that's the goal. And then we're back to gravity, and it just keeps recycling, and then it goes back enhancing space. And that pretty much is our whole philosophy on offense. Now, I have on here my email. If you want to see more video, I mean, I can X and O and do all of that stuff too, but it's not something that I think is the best use of time on Zoom. But feel free to send me an email and I can help out or give certain examples or how we practice these things or do these things. And I do have our website we use with our youth players that have examples. And it's a good site. It's the one that we have here. And it has some video, and I add more as we go. But all our cross-step stuff, drives, and then some one-on-one games, and then some passing examples that shows all of our one-hand passing, two-hand passing, as you can go along on that. Coach, that's all I have. I don't know if there's any questions.
So first question we have here, how do you calculate your effective field goal percent?
The best part is we have it with Huddle Assist, so it's done automatically. Otherwise, it's you take in, I don't have the formula right offhand, but if you Google it, it'll give you the formula. It's 3 points plus, 3-point shooting by plus 2-point shooting, and it's divided by, I don't even know it, but if you Google it, that's how you can find it, and you can do it by hand if you want. But that's a key for us. We want to be above 50%, and that's our goal. So basically it puts more weight to 3-point shooting since it's worth more points. And that's basically how it's factored in.
Do you have some favorite drills or strong side games you could share?
Anything 3-on-3, I love. My favorite game is 3-on-3 continuous. It's a full court game where it's nonstop, and it's very game-like in that you have two teams, one on one side, one on the other. You come out 3 players on offense, 3 players on defense, and you play the possession. So we usually play the rebounder stays. So if I get a defensive rebound, we are now going on offense. 2 new players are coming in with me, but the offensive team now has to transition back on defense. So it's very game-like. It's much better than the old 11-man drill where you would always have 2 people back on D. And then we build out of it. I just run if I want to see a particular action. So if I want to see a chase ball screen, I'll just say, okay, every possession, you got to start chase ball screen. And then they run that action, but then play out of it. And then you can load it by adding a 4th player. So then it's 4-on-4. And then we get to 5-on-5 transition in multiple different ways. My favorite being tip transition, where you just, in 5-on-5 tip transition, you just line up in a line, old tip drill, but so our colors are red and black. So we have a red player, black player, red player, black, all the way through. They throw it up off the glass, tip it. When I blow the whistle, whoever gets the rebound is on offense. So it's chaos, but it has, then the nice part is you got to transition on D, but you also have to play within the chaos and get to your structured spacing. And those are my favorite things that we do because I think they're the most game-like and we can get the most work out of it, both offense and defense.
Do you have you had ACL tears with your stride stop or jump stops, or if we rephrased it, what could you do or what have you found successful in preventing ACL tears?
We've had ACL tears. Some have been non-contact, some have been contact, some have been in soccer, some have been in basketball. I always look at it, and I've read both, so I never know what to think. I've read where they say you should jump stop and not stride stop, and then I've read the opposite where you should stride stop and not jump stop. All I know is in volleyball, kids stride stop at least every single time when they go for a spike. And it seems to be a relatively safe way to take off. But it's the landing, I think, a lot of times where that's what we've done in the summer with our strength and conditioning. We do a whole ACL training program. But the thing that I think we have to even improve on more is getting that proximity, being able to feel comfortable landing amongst bodies. That's why when it's, you know, as much of the ACL prevention is great, it sets a good base. Having bodies next to you and having that kinesthetic awareness to be able to land not on somebody, but next to somebody is huge. And one thing we do, we play a full court one-on-one just about every day. And one way that we started, and it's to build up to our transition and being your own outlet is playing offensive rebound one-on-one, where I'm throwing it up and I want to land. I turn in the air and land in a strong split sprint position. I always say you land like a quarterback. If you could picture a quarterback, how they look in the pocket. And then you play from there. And just getting that landing is, in a way, you're playing a game of basketball, but yet you're really, in another tertiary way, you're working on ACL prevention and landing kinesthetically next to somebody. But yes, it's ACL's an absolute bane to girls basketball. Last year we did not have any, which was outstanding. Previous year we had one, and I think that was it. But it's been, we aren't the only ones. You know, I think every team in our conference has had at least one every other year. But I know it's a situation with girls that is hard to work on.
Quick question. We got 3 questions here. What do you drill and practice most offensively? And to have 5 gravity players, how do you sharpen their scoring efficiency?
What do we drill most is, I mean, we shoot a ton in practice. Because ultimately, if you can shoot, you have one skill that has to be guarded, which is a part of that gravity skill set. But my favorite shooting drill, and we have a mix. We do some blocked shooting drills where there might not be a defender. We try to vary it though. We'll vary where they're not just shooting from the same spot every time. But sometimes you just got to shoot and work on it and see the ball go in. And that builds the confidence, and confidence becomes the biggest thing to improve shooting. Once you are a confident shooter, you're going to make a ton. But then we also do a lot of shooting with the defender. And my favorite is actually from Chris Oliver. It's my favorite because it builds in decision making. You put a defender with the ball underneath the basket, put 2 kids, for example, one in the corner and one on the wing. And now the defender can pass it out to either player, and the defender can close out to either player. So if I pass it to the corner and I close out to the corner, now that player has to make a decision. Do I shoot it? Do I have enough time to shoot it? Or do I make the decision to pass to my teammate who has a big advantage? So that's the way that we start to learn that shoot it or move it decision. And it's easy to just stand there and shoot. But as soon as you start thinking, okay, am I open to shoot, or is my teammate more open? And I know with kids, especially coaching girls, and I've coached boys and girls, a lot of times it'll be, especially with younger kids and youth, not so much the varsity kids, they'll make that, wait a minute, is she going to be mad at me if I shoot this? So they make that decision in there. And when we're trying to get them to just be fluid and with it, just realize if you got the advantage, you shoot it. If your teammate has a bigger advantage, you shoot it. That's my favorite shooting drill. The other one is simply 3 players, 2 balls, where now you can start building on the shoot it or drive it decision and based on the closeout of the defender. So I pass to a player, I close out to that player now makes a decision. Do I shoot it or do I drive and use a good cross step drive? But otherwise, my favorite drills are all 1-on-1, 2-on-2, 3-on-3 things that we are working on: attack, pivots, starts and stops, and then our finishing.
Do you video example of the 3-on-3 drill on your website?
Not yet, but I can put it on there. And I think I may have shared it at Twitter at some time, which I may do. The 3-on-3 continuous, I will do that. I do not have it on the website right now. But if you email me, I can give you a link to that where you can see it.
How much of your practice is individual compared to individual drill, small group, 5-on-5?
It fluctuates throughout the year. I mean, I think we always start practice with some conceptual things as a warm-up a lot of times. Coach Cullen has some favorite little passing drills and running things where it's a great warm-up and gets their mindset ready to go. But then we're full blow. It's 1-on-1, 2-on-2, 3-on-3, 4-on-4, 5-on-5 build up of each thing in both offense and defense. And we focus on offense and defense during those times. We do have, again, we are defensive based, so we do have a core package of how we teach defense that we do often, especially if things aren't going the way that we want it to go. We'll go to that drill and say, hey, let's get back to our core here. But it's mostly it is opposed. I mean, we have most of the things we are doing have an offense and a defense. Now, it might be some variations of 4v2, 3-on-1, all of those different aspects. But I think that's the biggest change Coach has made since I've been with him. I mean, because I'd always ask him, and this is why I love the man, I'd ask him, okay, what's your goal with this? You know, do we do this in a game? Are we able to make a decision? And that's why he's a Hall of Famer. He was able to make the changes, and it's helped us offensively, but kept us really, really outstanding defensively as well.
All right, couple of rapid fire questions as we're, we have now crossed the hour. So let's go a couple of rapid fire questions here. And that is, what percentage of your skill work is versus defense compared to on air? And has that increased as the years have gone on?
Absolutely has increased. I would say it's probably about 90%, 10%. We are opposed with the defender. There is some little things that we do a short period of time. I mean, it's a little bit, usually at the beginning of practice as kids are loosening up. Otherwise, we have a defender. Now, it might be a guided defender, or it might be a specific thing that we want the defender to do. Like sometimes if we're in that 3-person 2-ball drill, might just say, hey, fly by. So the shooter will fly by, so you might have to take a side dribble to shoot. But in general, we want to have decisions in it. That's why those in our circle of offense, that decision is on every scene because they have to be there because players make plays. That's our goal. We don't, as coaches, our playing days are over. The players got to make the decisions and the players make plays. That's what we want.
All right. Another question here, and we're wrapping up with Coach Dave Lepisto. Kimberly High School in Wisconsin, girls basketball program, one of the best in the state. Any ideas that you have against teams that switch versus your man to switch your man-to-man offense?
Absolutely. Teams do switch on us often, or not often, but there's a number of teams that do. So we just space the floor. We don't screen as much. We'll fake screen and slip everything. And depending on how teams that switch, depending if they are low eye, high eye, we will pin. And a lot of times the pin and skip is like pinning a zone. You just pin your own. And then the other action that you do is back screen on the way out, and then seal that defender because it's hard to switch. And that's much harder because they get stuck on the high side, and then you can roll and you seal. But a lot of it is we just don't screen as much. We just cut a whole lot more, and then try to get out of it. We haven't had any real problems with switching. This last year, one team that we played, they were just outstanding. It wasn't the switching that caused us problems. It was their pressure that actually caused us problems. That was the only game that we struggled. And they were just outstanding. I will say they were the best team in the state. But Yeah, so that's what we do against switching.
All right, last question here. We appreciate your time, Coach, and
Mm-hmm.
a great presentation. Question here. Let's say you have a great athlete on the floor, but not a good shooter.
Yep.
What becomes her role in the offense?
We still are spaced, but and the key is, this is the opportunity where you can use dribble handoffs, chase action. So I'm dribbling and I could come, because if they're not guarding her, that's great. That gets us downhill right away. So now if they're not guarding, they're completely drop just like if you think of defending a ball screen, drop coverage. Now we can come off with that little flip and a screen, and the person with the ball is able to get downhill right away. And once we're downhill and we're in the paint, defense is in rotation, we get them in the blender, and now we just have to make the right decision. So dribble handoffs, that would be absolutely the thing to do with players who do not have shooting gravity. It makes it harder because there's always someone not being guarded. However, that is something that you could do to take advantage of them not guarding that person.
Is this off the ball, or is she cutting to the hoop?
If she's off the ball, she's probably pinning that backside. But a lot of times, if you are a player that doesn't have gravity and you do have the ball, that's not a bad thing, because now we can, since she's not being guarded, and I'm going to make the assumption that we're skilled enough to be able to make 2-3 dribbles at a person. And if I can make 2-3 dribbles at a person being barely guarded, I'm able to dribble, flip, chase into that ball screen, and now I'm just diving. I am diving as hard as I can to the rim, regardless if that person is turning the corner or not, because now we are in our drive reactions. So we'll have somebody pulling behind the drive. We have somebody, the flip person and the ball screen person is diving to the rim, and we have everybody spaced on that backside. So it absolutely dive to the rim, put pressure on it. Worst case scenario, you can get an offensive rebound. Best case scenario, you can get a layup, or you are just constantly screening and putting a body on. And if they want to switch it, that's fine. Then we can just bounce back and get a movement, and it's okay. That's honestly the best way to deal with a player who does not have shooting ability at all. And it doesn't matter if it's a big. I know, like in the boys' game, there's a lot of football players who might not be the most skilled basketball-wise, but you know what? You're at a small school and you need them out there. Well, I'd just turn them. I'd teach them how to dribble handoff like crazy. Flip, go get. Flip it to a player, go get a ball screen, and then dive like crazy. And make that defense have to adjust then, and just hope you can teach them how to shoot a layup. I mean, that's basically would be our job as coaches.
Great stuff, Coach. Really appreciate it. Thank you so much. I definitely recommend you guys follow him on Twitter and go to his site. A lot of great information there. And we look forward to continue to learn from Coach. And really appreciate everyone spending their night here with us on Coach's Clinic. And for me, here in New York, good night. And Coach, thank you once again, and look forward to connecting with you soon.
You bet. Thank you, Coach. We'll see you.
Bye-bye.
I just need to